Hollywood's golden age produced icons whose images were meticulously engineered by powerful studio machines. To audiences, these stars appeared flawless, witty, cultured, and effortlessly brilliant. Yet away from the cameras, a different reality often emerged. Beneath the polish, several celebrated performers displayed astonishing lapses in judgment, awareness, or intellectual curiosity. These shortcomings weren't rumors invented by tabloids, but observations documented by co-workers, relatives, biographers, and internal studio correspondents. What follows is a closer look at how fame sometimes concealed glaring limitations and how those flaws quietly reshaped Hollywood.
Let's stop it, please. Now, let's get one thing straight for all these nice people. I don't have to steal jokes.
Milton Berle. No performer wielded more influence than Milton Berle. His variety show dominated early broadcast schedules, at one point attracting an overwhelming majority of American viewers. Networks crowned him Mr. Television, and for a brief moment, the title seemed unassailable. But Berle's meteoric rise fostered an ego that would later sabotage everything he built. As his fame grew, so did complaints from those around him. Writers accused him of lifting routines. Staff members recalled him demanding full control over scripts while rarely bothering to review them. When executives proposed updates to modernize the show, Berle flatly rejected the ideas, convinced that what once worked would always work. Ratings steadily slipped, but Berle blamed everyone except himself. Biographer Gerald Nachman described Berle as impulsive and dismissive, frequently firing writers without explanation. He refused to share airtime, fearful that younger comics might outshine him. His business instincts were no sharper. He turned down a lucrative MGM film deal rather than scale back nightclub appearances. Later, he launched comedy clubs bearing his name but never visited them. Every location closed within 2 years. Berle helped invent television comedy, yet failed to understand its evolution.
I gotta say Pope John and Al Capone said they don't fool around with me. I get you.
Rod Steiger's war against his own career. Steiger earned a reputation as one of cinema's most intense performers, delivering emotionally explosive performances in films like On the Waterfront and In the Heat of the Night. His commitment to method acting won awards and admiration, but it also earned him a reputation as exhausting, unpredictable, and professionally self-sabotaging. Steiger's insistence on emotional preparation often disrupted productions. Director David Lean reportedly clashed with him repeatedly over delays caused by Steiger's need to reach a specific mental state. Co-stars described working with him as draining rather than inspiring. His obsession with control frequently slowed filming and strained relationships. Steiger repeatedly rejected career-defining roles and dismissed The Godfather as commercial nonsense. Both decisions haunted him. Though he later admitted regret, he continued prioritizing artistic autonomy over stability. Choosing obscure projects that offered control, Steiger blamed the industry for failing to recognize his brilliance. Directors remembered something else entirely: a gifted actor who made collaboration nearly impossible. By his later years, Steiger faced financial hardship and accepted low-budget international roles to survive. His talent was undeniable, but his rigidity ensured it worked against him.
I hope this bouncing doesn't open up your cut.
Honey, forget it. It's nothing. Really, you in love?
Huh?
Jayne Mansfield was far from foolish. She spoke multiple languages, excelled academically, and possessed genuine musical training. Yet she built her entire career around pretending otherwise. By leaning aggressively into the dumb blonde stereotype, Mansfield ensured constant attention but sacrificed longevity. She relied on outrageous publicity stunts to stay visible. Carefully staged mishaps, scandalous interviews, and spectacle replaced substance. The persona became so dominant that critics dismissed her performances outright. Regardless of effort, casting directors stopped seeing potential and saw only caricature. Biographer Martha Saxton noted that Mansfield frequently undermined serious opportunities. She declined theater roles that lacked television exposure and chose shock value. Her personal life mirrored this chaos. Her marriage to Mickey Hargitay collapsed publicly, and she surrounded herself with figures drawn more to attention as her fame waned. Mansfield accepted poorly written European films simply to remain visible. When she died in 1967, the public remembered the image, not the intellect behind it. Her tragedy wasn't stupidity, but believing the act would never consume the actress. Peter Lorre and the fear of stepping outside the cage. Peter Lorre's face became synonymous with unease. His wide eyes and halting voice made him unforgettable in films like M and The Maltese Falcon. But the same qualities that defined his success also imprisoned him. Lorre arrived in Hollywood as a refugee from Nazi Germany, educated, multilingual, and deeply cultured. Yet terrified of instability, he accepted nearly every role offered, quickly cementing himself as a villain or eccentric outsider. When presented with roles that could have broadened his image, he declined them, convinced audiences wouldn't accept him otherwise. Director John Huston once offered Lorre a dramatic role that could have reshaped his career. Lorre refused, afraid of breaking audience expectations. According to biographers, his greatest obstacle wasn't Hollywood prejudice, it was his own insecurity. Addiction compounded the damage. A long-term dependence on morphine drained his finances and health. He routinely failed to negotiate contracts, earning less than his peers. At one point, he borrowed money just to avoid eviction. Lorre was respected for his intelligence, yet fear dictated his choices. He understood the trap but never dared to escape it.
You're gonna make me say it, huh?
George Raft's legendary talent for saying no. George Raft had everything studios wanted in the 1930s: swagger, authenticity, and undeniable presence. He embodied the gangster archetype before it became iconic. Yet his career is remembered less for what he did than for what he rejected. Raft notoriously refused roles that required vulnerability or moral complexity. He declined The Maltese Falcon, Casablanca, and Double Indemnity, all of which transformed Humphrey Bogart into a legend. Raft dismissed them as weak or strange, focusing only on toughness. Studio memos described him as short-sighted and uninterested in scripts. Off-screen, his judgment didn't improve. He maintained close ties to organized crime figures and gambled heavily, often losing substantial earnings. Raft believed sticking to familiar ground was strength. Instead, it ensured his irrelevance. While others evolved, he stayed rigid, and Hollywood moved on without him. Johnny Weissmuller and the limits of physical. Johnny Weissmuller entered Hollywood as an Olympic champion, not an intellectual force. Cast as Tarzan, his athleticism made him a sensation. Dialogue, however, was another matter entirely. Studio records show Weissmuller struggled with scripts and memorization. Directors simplified scenes, emphasizing action to compensate. When he forgot lines, he resorted to improvised grunts often left in the final cut. Despite massive earnings, Weissmuller made disastrous financial decisions, investing in failed ventures and novelty businesses. By his later years, he was nearly broke. Friends described him as kind but astonishingly naive. Fame preserved his image but masked his limitations. Long after the jungle sets disappeared, Weissmuller still lived as Tarzan, confused, nostalgic, and unprepared for life. Ed Wood and the inability to recognize failure. Ed Wood believed wholeheartedly in his own genius. Unfortunately, belief was the only thing he had. His films, particularly Plan 9 from Outer Space, revealed a complete lack of technical understanding, yet Wood saw masterpieces. He filmed scenes without checking focus, used paper plates as flying saucers, and replaced deceased actors with taller stand-ins hidden by capes. When criticized, he blamed audiences for lacking vision. Biographer Rudolph Gray described Wood as endlessly optimistic but delusional. He never corrected mistakes because he didn't recognize them. He died impoverished, convinced greatness awaited him just beyond reach. Ed Wood didn't fail because of bad luck. He failed because he never understood what competence required.
It's on the level. This is a working.
Wallace Beery and the Cost of Brute Force. Wallace Beery was a box office titan, winning an Academy Award and dominating MGM productions. Yet behind the scenes, he was infamous for bullying, intellectual limitations, and volatility. Studio records indicate scripts were simplified specifically for him. Directors complained he memorized lines without grasping meaning. Co-stars recalled physical intimidation, particularly toward child actors. Joan Crawford reportedly despised working with him off-screen. Barry's decisions were equally misguided. He invested in bizarre ventures and showed no interest in broader cultural or political understanding. Executives viewed him as profitable but dangerous. Barry succeeded not because of insight, but because brute force sells until it doesn't.
Fortune of one who has thrown my entire kingdom into turmoil.
Buster Crabbe and the Cost of Standing Still. Clarence. Buster Crabbe entered American history as an athletic phenomenon, capturing Olympic gold in the 400-meter freestyle in 1932. Hollywood quickly transformed that victory into a career, casting him as a procession of pulp heroes: Tarzan, Flash Gordon, Buck Rogers. On screen, he looked indestructible. Off-screen, however, Crabbe never truly understood the system that elevated him. In later reflections, he admitted he rarely bothered reading full scripts. Dialogue and character depth meant little to him. Movement and action were what mattered. During Flash Gordon, his spoken lines were frequently replaced in post-production after repeated mistakes on set. Directors were forced to stage scenes with minimal dialogue to keep productions moving. Despite consistent popularity in serials, Crabbe resisted growth. He avoided dramatic roles, convinced audiences would reject him outside his athletic persona. Film historians later observed that Crabbe didn't fail to evolve. He simply didn't believe evolution was necessary. That mindset extended beyond acting. He invested heavily in a swimming pool franchise, assuming fame would carry the business. Legal conflicts and upkeep costs wiped out his profits. When television producers proposed reviving Flash Gordon in the 1950s, Crabbe demanded control, then abandoned the project halfway through. His career didn't collapse in scandal or tragedy. It faded through inertia. Hollywood changed. Buster Crabbe didn't.
Your help, thank you.
Follow me.
Esther Williams, and a career built on the surface. Esther Williams became MGM's aquatic marvel, the face of water-soaked spectacle during the 1940s and 50s. Her films were elaborate aquatic pageants, precision choreography, shimmering costumes, and gravity-defying dives staged like fantasy. Yet beneath the visual polish was a performer largely disengaged from the craft and business of acting. Williams herself admitted she skimmed scripts at best. If a scene didn't involve a pool, her interest waned. Directors often structured entire films around her physical strengths rather than emotional range. Her personal decisions mirrored that simplicity. Williams married repeatedly, most notably to Fernando Lamas, who demanded she step away from her career. She complied without resistance, later explaining she admired dominance. Friends frequently noted her poor financial instincts. She dismissed television as inferior just as film opportunities vanished. Her swimwear brand collapsed due to weak planning and oversight. By the late 1960s, Williams found herself financially strained and professionally sidelined. Reinvention never occurred to her. Once MGM dismantled its water tanks, the world she depended on disappeared. Frank Fay and the ruin of unchecked ego. Frank Fay once commanded American comedy stages with authority. In the 1920s, his mastery of timing and delivery made him a vaudeville titan, but success inflated his worst traits. Fay developed a reputation for cruelty, prejudice, and staggering arrogance. Studio executives documented his refusal to follow direction, his habit of rewriting material uninvited, and his open contempt for colleagues. George Burns famously described him as both brilliant and unbearable offstage. Fay's behavior worsened. He made no attempt to hide his bigotry in an industry increasingly intolerant of it. Arrests for drunken misconduct became routine. His marriage to Barbara Stanwyck ended amid allegations of abuse. Fay dismissed sound films as beneath him, delaying his transition until it was too late. When he finally appeared in a talkie, critics dismantled the performance. Offers vanished. By mid-century, Fay was relegated to minor club appearances. A former giant exiled by his own arrogance
Has arrived.
Okay.
William Frawley and the enemy within William Frawley's legacy is forever tied to Fred Mertz. Yet his career nearly ended long before television saved it. For decades, he was known as difficult, volatile, and unreliable. Alcoholism plagued his performances, leading directors to cut scenes or refuse to work with him entirely. His reputation almost cost him his most famous role. Lucille Ball objected to casting him, and only strict contractual conditions secured his involvement. While Frawley managed professionalism on set, his off-screen behavior remained chaotic. Bar bans, confrontations, and public incidents followed him. He openly rejected training, rehearsal, and adaptation, dismissing preparation as weakness. When I Love Lucy ended, few producers were willing to risk employing him. His talent was real, but his refusal to grow narrowed his future. Frawley mistook stubbornness for integrity, never realizing how close he came to losing everything he achieved.
I were going to California. We got this far and he died.
Jean Arthur and the Art of Disappearingen. Arthur radiated warmth and vulnerability on screen, anchoring some of Hollywood's most beloved classics. Yet fame terrified her. She avoided press, public appearances, and studio interactions whenever possible. Directors described her as elusive, sometimes unreachable for months. Anxiety dictated her career choices, often to her detriment. During productions, Arthur's discomfort escalated into near paralysis. Sets were altered to accommodate her fears. Despite accolades, she rejected major roles and withdrew from long-term contracts. Eventually, she walked away without a plan. Teaching later in life provided structure, but even then she remained distant. Arthur didn't lose relevance through failure. She stepped away deliberately, unable to coexist with the machinery of fame that sustained her. Earl Holliman. And the comfort of playing it safe. Earl Holliman showed early promise, earning awards and sharing screens with legends. Yet ambition never followed opportunity. He avoided roles requiring transformation or risk, consistently choosing familiarity. Studio correspondence revealed reluctance to stretch emotionally or politically. Directors found him pleasant, but limited. Holliman declined television just as it became dominant, trusting film to carry him indefinitely. Poor investments further eroded stability. His career didn't implode, it stalled. In a profession that rewards evolution, Holliman chose comfort and watched his relevance quietly dissolve.
To get accustomed to be on the stage, we were sent to plays.
Marlene Dietrich and The Mask She Never Removed. Marlene Dietrich mastered illusion both on and off screen. Publicly, she cultivated an image of detachment, often pretending ignorance to maintain control. Privately, her intelligence was formidable. She chose concealment as strategy, believing brilliance unsettled those in power. As Hollywood shifted, her carefully limited persona left her few options. Unlike peers who expanded into creative authority, Dietrich relied on performance alone. Her later years were defined by nostalgia rather than innovation. She survived by minimizing herself and, in doing so, confined her legacy.
I found out something.
Tony Curtis and talent without depth. Tony Curtis possessed charisma in abundance, but discipline lagged behind. Directors frequently compensated for his lack of preparation. Curtis admitted to ignoring scripts and undervaluing craft. His public remarks revealed carelessness, and his role choices favored image over growth. Personal impulsiveness mirrored professional missteps. Multiple marriages and erratic behavior dominated headlines. Curtis had ability, but little patience for refinement. His fame endured, but his potential remained only partially realized. Guy Madison and the limits of appearance. Guy Madison's rise was built almost entirely on looks. Acting skill and industry awareness never caught up. Directors struggled to extract credible performances, relying on repetition and dubbing. Madison showed little initiative to improve, even as opportunities dwindled. Financial misjudgments compounded the problem. Ill-planned ventures failed quickly. As tastes shifted, Madison was left behind, reduced to forgettable roles. He had access, exposure, and opportunity, but no strategy. His career serves as a cautionary tale of what happens when success arrives before understanding.